Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. And of course, Tankfest is fast approaching, the last weekend in June, actually. Technically also the first weekend in July. The final day of Tankfest this year, which is the only day that still has tickets available for sale, by the way, just in case, you didn't already realise, is Sunday the 1st of July. And the 1st of July is Rita's birthday. She's going to be 27. She's getting old, bless her. I'm going to have to trade her in for a newer model. What? No, it's fine. She doesn't listen to Mingles with Jingles. It's no problem. At least I hope she doesn't. Well, I'm going to find out if she listens to Mingles with Jingles. I'll be getting a swift smack across the back of my head next time I'm playing Conan Exiles. But yeah, Sunday, the 1st of July, is Rita's 27th birthday. So here's what I thought. We're going to be doing, in fact, let me just flash up my email client, because we have the preliminary timings for the meet and greet on Saturday and Sunday at Tankfest. So, now, these times are subject to change, but they probably won't. So between 9 and 10:30 on Saturday the 30th of June, and in the afternoon on Sunday the 1st of July, between 12 and 13:30, that's when Rita and I are going to be doing our meet and greet. Now, it's not going to happen in the same place that it did last year. Last year, the Tank Museum put up a marquee tent right outside the entrance to the museum, where everybody who wanted to say hello could queue up, sometimes for several hours, in order to say hello. And that was great, but it was kind of hot, and that's a long time to be standing in the sun. So what they're doing this time around is exactly the same as at Tiger Day earlier this year. All the meet and greets, not just for myself, I'll give you the full list of guests who are turning up. They're going to be conducted in the Churchill Rooms, which is a suite of rooms actually inside the Tank Museum. Don't worry, they'll be signposted. You'll easily be able to find them. Now, I did mention that it's not just me and Rita who are being rolled out in front of the public to do our dance and monkey routine for the meet and greet on Saturday and Sunday. The Tank Museum have managed to gather quite a list of YouTube celebrities for exactly this purpose. We have Fly Daily, Lindy Beige, Bismarck, Squire and Bill, Military History Visualized, The Beard Guys, Mike Goes Boom, Iron Armenian, and DF. Now, in case you're going through the list of everybody that I've just mentioned and thinking, well, hang on a minute, where's Circumflexes? Where's Quickie Baby, for example? Don't worry. Wargaming have got that covered separately, or at least I assume they do. They normally do. I haven't actually seen a list of any World of Tanks celebrities that Wargaming are bringing along to Tankfest, but I'm sure that as we get closer to the event, they're going to publish it. But that will occur separately. Myself and Rita and all of the people that I've just mentioned are there as guests of the Tank Museum itself, rather than as guests of Wargaming. Wargaming are going to be doing their own thing. Now, bearing in mind that it is Rita's 27th birthday on the 1st of July, which is the final day of Tankfest, I thought it would be pretty cool if we could do something for her. Now, what that involves, I'm going to leave entirely up to your imagination. If you want to bring birthday cards for her, I'm sure that would be fine. If you want to bring birthday presents for her, I'm sure that would be even more fine. She gets to carry all the stuff home this year rather than me. Actually, I know I'm going to be carrying whatever you bring for Rita, because that's just the way things work. If you want to sing happy birthday to her, I'm sure that would be... I'm sure she wouldn't be embarrassed at all. And, if you're stuck for ideas of the sort of things that maybe you might like to bring along as a gift for her, well, allow me to provide you with some inspiration. I know that she absolutely hates ginger. The spice ginger, that is. Well, actually not ginger spice, because that's... You know what I mean. The stuff that goes into food, not the failed pop star. And certainly not ginger people. I'm sure ginger people are lovely, even though they don't have any souls. But yeah, anything ginger flavoured, I'm sure that would go down a storm. Also, Rita's from Portugal, and the Portuguese have a long history of not getting along with the Spanish. So... yeah. In fact, if you absolutely want to trigger somebody from Portugal, just call them Spanish. It works every time. So anything with a Spanish theme, I'm sure would go down very, very well with Rita as well. What? Nah, we'll be fine. Don't worry. She doesn't actually watch episodes of Mingles with Jingles. This will be fine. We'll get away with it. This is just between you and me. She doesn't need to know. At least not until the day. So, you know, I'm sure this is all going to be great. Oh, and don't worry if you're only there for the Saturday and not the Sunday. If you're not there for the actual day of a birthday itself, because it's the thought that counts. Right? Saturday works too. So, yeah, this is going to be fun. Probably a lot more fun for you and me than for Rita. But, well, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't live with the mighty Jingles. She knew what she was getting into. Right, anyway, what's next? I got an email this week from a Mr. John Hargreaves, and it was in response to, I can't remember which video it was, but I'd made a comment about the inaccuracy of German battleship guns in World of Warships, in stark contrast to the accuracy that German battleships were famed for in real life in both World War I and World War II. And I do know from my own reading that certainly prior to World War I there was very little actual gunnery training done on a regular basis in the Royal Navy. The emphasis was more on having your ship look nice and clean and presentable, rather than dirtying it up by firing off great big blasts of cordite from the gun barrels, which would necessitate an awful lot of cleaning afterwards. And I've talked about this sort of thing in a previous episode of Mingles with Jingles. By contrast, the Germans did do regular firing practice. And the Royal Navy in particular, recognising, once war broke out, that they had a bit of an accuracy problem because their gun crews hadn't had an awful lot of training prior to the war, compensated for this with volume of firepower, getting the guns firing as fast as they possibly could. However, Mr. Hargreaves has been doing some reading. Let me relate his email to you. Dear Jingles, regarding German gun accuracy, I would quote from Anthony Preston from the Maritime Museum Greenwich, where he works on Admiralty records and analysis. He's also the editor of defence in his book Sea Power. Although the fire control system of the Germans was inferior to the Royal Navy, it was superior in one aspect. They had the Zeiss rangefinders. Now, he goes on to describe the width of the rangefinders. Anything between 20 or 27 feet, depending on the model. I don't know if we can actually see here. Yeah, I'll pause the video here. There. Okay, obvious disclaimer to get out of the way first. This isn't a German battleship, this is an Amagi, it's a Japanese battleship, but the rangefinders on the gun turrets have a very similar configuration. This sort of tube sitting across the top of the back of the turret. Pay particular attention to the way that these rangefinder boxes actually extend out beyond the sides of the turrets, and that basically gives them quite a wide focal distance. And the longer the focal distance, the more accurate the rangefinder. So the German battleships would have rangefinders like that, with a focal distance of anything between 20 and 27 feet, whereas on a British battleship, certainly pre-World War II designs, the rangefinders stuck up out of the top of the turrets, rather than extending out beyond the sides in the same way as these ones do. Which meant that a British rangefinder would only have a focal range of anything between 9 and 15 feet, and the further apart the rangefinders are, the more accurate the range calculation. So, continuing on from John's email, what this meant in practice was that German guns were very accurate at the beginning of battles, for the Royal Navy system worked much better under stress, whereas the German rangefinders were sensitive, delicate, and hard to operate in battle. Therefore, as Mr. Preston quotes, the British shooting got better in battle, while the German shooting started well, but got much worse. During the later periods in World War II, the gunnery of the Royal Navy was much improved by technology that the Germans had ignored or hadn't developed sufficiently to help. There are famous incidents for German accuracy in early engagements, such as the Hood disaster, but equally on the other side there are many moments where prolonged engagements showed much better sustained accuracy by the Royal Navy. The myth of German accuracy was sustained by propaganda in both World Wars and stemmed from other nations' observers watching gunnery trials in the Baltic during both wars. The myth has continued. German ships would have early accurate shots, but this would become much more erratic in combat and under fire for the difficulty of the Zeiss rangefinders and the better overall fire control of the Royal Navy. I would therefore suggest that the World of Warships has the German characteristics of accuracy about right. Kind regards, John H., retired builder of capital warships. And also, as it turns out, one of my supporters on Patreon, so thank you very much, John. Thanks for taking the time and trouble of not only doing the research, but also letting me know about it. I certainly enjoyed having my appreciation of military naval history expanded. And you've just added another book to the list of books that I obviously need to read. I want to read out another one of the emails that I received this week, and this is not the usual type of email that I received. This comes from Andrew in Colorado in the USA, and he has himself a little bit of a moral conundrum. Dear Mighty Jingles, I feel like I've been put into a pickle, sir. I live in Colorado, and recently I felt pressured to join the US military because a lot of my close and best friends are or will be going into the military after college graduation. After doing 2 weeks of research into the military, I've decided that I'm just not made for it. Though I enjoy the weaponry and tactics of the military. I hope to go into elected office someday, and in doing so I want to go to law school for my master's program. I feel like saying that I'm not made for the military. I'm making myself look like a coward in front of my friends and could be considered as not serving my country. I don't know what the British sentiments are about politicians and lawyers, but in the US they're at an all-time low. This is what makes me personally sad, because I want to make sure that the rights and liberties enshrined in our Constitution are applied to every American, because through our service men and women risk their lives to protect those values from foreign enemies. Who's to protect them when they come home? Our culture has always been strong in anti-government and fear of too much political power, and I carry the same philosophy, and I see it as my duty both in law and in politics to protect all Americans from the very government, both state and federal, and from fellow citizens who seek to violate or lessen their rights. I've always been interested in politics and constitutional law since high school, and I'm currently interning for a policy centre and writing policy briefs to change society based on conservative principles of freedom, choice and equal opportunity to succeed. However, my fear and sadness comes from me feeling like I'm never going to be doing a noble cause like my friends are going to the military, and I'll be seen as another politician who's not to be trusted. When the reality is I'm not a corrupt person, and have placed my honour and probably most of my life fulfilling a call to make society better for all Americans. And I just feel like I'm not serving my country as much as my friends or people in the military. I know that you served in the Royal Navy, and even though you're a Brit and have different political philosophies than typical Americans, I'm still asking for your advice. Do you think I'm serving a higher purpose by going into law and wanting to serve the people in elected office, and am I considered to be serving my country even though I'll never, nor want me or anyone, especially my friends, to be deployed into a combat zone? This has personally been bringing my self-esteem down, because though all of my friends, including the ones in or going into the military, say that I am, I still feel like I'm not. So as a man with life wisdom, since I'm only 20 and almost 21 in January, and as someone who has served in the military, can you answer my 2 questions above, and if possible, offer your take and advice on my situation? Your friend across the pond, Andrew. Wow, okay. It's not every week in an episode of Mingles with Jingles where I'm asked to give the kind of advice that can affect the course of somebody's life. And I really don't want to screw this one up. First things first. The part where you made the very, very correct observation that I'm British, not American, and therefore have different political philosophies than typical Americans. That is so incredibly true, probably much more true than you realise. The whole thank you for your service thing in particular that you have going in the USA, you just don't really get that over here in Britain. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but the whole, oh, you were a veteran, thank you for your service thing that you do have going on in America just doesn't happen over here. I mean, oh, you were in the army? Yeah, great, fine. I'm cooking eggs here. You know, I don't really care. That's really our attitude. And I'm not saying that we disrespect servicemen or servicewomen, but we don't accord them automatic respect purely because they happen to join the military. And I know you do this in the USA, and again, I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing, but there's been in the military and then there's been in the military. I mean, if you joined the military and you spent 4 years servicing the air conditioning units at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, it's not really the same being in the military as a Marine in Kandahar. Yeah, there are different levels of service to your country, that's all I'm saying. Not that there's anything wrong with spending 4 years servicing the air conditioning units at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I mean, we rarely have the luxury and option of choosing where it is we're going to serve. And if the powers be decide that we can best serve our country by servicing the air conditioning units at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, there's not a lot you can do to argue about it. But at the same time, if you're going to say thank you for your service to an air conditioning technician in the Air Force, and thank you for your service to somebody that served 3 back-to-back consecutive tours of duty with the Marine Corps in Kandahar, at what point does saying thank you for your service automatically just become meaningless? See, we don't do that in Britain. You see, if I was to go around Britain saying I did 22 years in the Royal Navy, I would probably be asked 4 very important questions. Yeah, and so what? And I think that those are 4 very valid questions, because simply being in the military for 22 years is nothing special. There are brass cannons outside the main gate of HMS Nelson that have been in the military a lot longer than I have, but nobody stops to thank them for their service, and rightfully so, because all they've done is stand outside the gates of HMS Nelson. What you did when you were in the military for those 22 years, or however long you served, is far more important than the actual fact of your service. Anybody can join the military, but doing something worthwhile, and not just in the military, but in any walk of life, doing anything worthwhile with the time that you have, whether that's in the military, in politics, whatever, in my opinion at least, matters far more than the simple act of service. Of course, this is easy for me to say because I don't live in a culture that does put such a high emphasis on honouring its veterans. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. In many ways it's a very, very good thing. I can guarantee you if that was the case in Britain, I'd probably be enjoying a hell of a lot more free beer than I currently am, but, you know, I'm not, so. The point, however, is you do live in that kind of culture, and so I do understand the kind of pressure that you must be under, because you clearly seem to be a young man who is very passionate and sincere about serving his country and his fellow citizens to the best of his ability, and it seems obviously apparent that joining the military is not the way for you to do that. And I kind of feel like you already know that. I mean, your heart is telling you this is not the way to do it. There is a better way. And you already know what that way is. You've already discussed it. And you just want to hear it from somebody else. Well, I'm entirely happy to be that other person. Listen to your heart. What is your heart telling you? What is your stomach telling you? Not your conscience. Your conscience can trick you. Your conscience is pressuring you to join the military because that's what your culture tells you should do in order to serve your country. Well, listen to your heart. But anyway, I'm confident you'll make the right decision, and I'm confident that whatever decision you make, you'll be passionate about it. You'll give it 110%. And if you do go into politics, and I suspect you probably will, I hope that you retain that passion and sincerity for as long as humanly possible before you inevitably get ground down and become jaded and cynical about it like everybody else. But thank you very much for sending that email in. It's not often I get ones like that. And, of course, I'd be very interested in hearing what everybody else thinks about Andrew's situation in the comments down below. If anybody else has any advice for Andrew, or if anybody disagrees with my advice for Andrew, then let us know in the comments. Actually, you know, it's just occurred to me that I've just spent a long time telling this guy that he shouldn't pay any attention whatsoever to my opinion, based purely on the fact that I spent 22 years in the military. Yeah, I really didn't think that one through, did I? Anyway, moving on swiftly, before that one comes back to bite me in the arse, I've just received some late news from the Tank Museum, again to do with Tankfest, and it's, well, do you remember a couple of weeks ago I was listing, actually a little bit more than a couple of weeks ago, I was listing all of the guest armour that's appearing at Tankfest, and I did mention that there may be another late arrival to the guest list. Well, the Tank Museum have just announced exactly what it is. A rare Second World War tank is set to cross the channel for a starring role at Tankfest, the UK's annual festival devoted to all things tank-related. In case it's not obvious, I'm reading directly from the email here. A partnership between the Tank Museum, the French Tank Museum at Saumur in France, and World of Tanks, the popular free-to-play video game made by Wargaming. This month will see the Char B1 tank in action for the first time ever in the United Kingdom. The tank is the last running Char B1 model in the world, will be crewed by the French Army, who will also accompany the vehicle across the channel to Tankfest, taking place at the Tank Museum in Bovington between the 29th of June to the 1st of July. To celebrate the event, World of Tanks will have missions featuring the Char B1, with players able to catch it both at Tankfest and in-game. A variation of the tank, the Char B2, will also be available for purchase in the game, with proceeds going towards the continued preservation of the real-life Char B1. So, Tankfest 2018 is shaping up to be pretty special. They've got an amazing collection of guest armour on display, There's still time, I suppose, for a last-minute surprise. I know we were all hoping that the Tiger 2 was going to make it over from France as well, but at this stage, if it was coming, we'd know about it. So I wouldn't be holding my breath waiting for any more surprise announcements from the Tank Museum. I think the list of guest armour, with the addition of the Char B1, is now complete. But I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I hope you lot are too. All of which almost brings us to the end of this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. I just have one other thing to mention. I do like to do these occasional shout-outs for smaller YouTube channels. I just think of it as paying it forward. Angry Nerd Gaming got in touch with me during the course of the week. He does video content on War Thunder and World of Warships. And he's currently trying to push to break over that 10,000 subscriber milestone. He's currently sitting on just over 9,000, so he doesn't have that far to go. And he's running a contest which he's calling Pick Your Own Premium. Once he reaches 10,000 subscribers, he's going to draw from all of the people who have subscribed to his channel and offer them the opportunity to pick a prize of their own choice from either the War Thunder or World of Warships premium shop up to the value of $50. So you get to pick your own prize, whether that's premium time, golden eagles, gold doubloons, premium ships, premium whatever from War Thunder. The point is, you pick what you want, and he just pays for it. So there's a link down below in the video description to both his channel and the giveaway video in particular. Hopefully, if you have a look, you like what you see, you subscribe, and you may be in with a chance to pick a prize of your choice from both of the game's premium shops. So that's Angry Nerd Gaming. Best of luck to him, and hopefully, by the end of June, he'll pass that 10,000 subscriber milestone, and somebody is going to be a winner. And that's pretty much it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you all have a great week ahead. And I hope to see as many of you as possible at Tankfest, at least on the Saturday and Sunday of Tankfest, because I'm not going to be there for all 3 days. I'm skipping the Friday. And that's pretty much it. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.